We are finally starting to get some warm weather. You guys can still see there's some snow on the mountains over there here in Utah, but today is like 75 degrees. Perfect weather, and it's a great time to talk about this new gas Cummins. But here's the question. Do you guys think that that gas engine will make its way into the Ram trucks? We're going to answer that here in a second. Now, I am here at Larry H. Miller Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram here in Sandy, Utah. These 2025 Rams are making their way into the dealership, and I think that if you came and drove one, you might buy one, so be careful here. Let's go ahead and get started with the video. I think Car and Driver has a write-up on this, so let's head over to their website. I do like how they wrote this article on Car and Driver. So it goes on to say, if you say your truck's got a Cummins 6.7, it would be reasonable to assume you'd fill it up with the pumps with the big green handles. But Cummins has a new turbocharged 6.7 inline 6 that takes the brand in a new direction, embracing gasoline as its animating petroleum distillate. The idea is to offer diesel-style longevity and power, minus the diesel. Intended for medium-duty trucks, your buses, delivery vans, and utility vehicles, the 6.7 octane will be available in 4 flavors of output, from 200 horsepower and 600 pound-feet of torque to 300 horsepower and 660 pound-feet of torque. That mirrors the choices for the diesel version of the B67, and the two engines' torque curves look very similar, with the diesel hitting its peak at 1400 RPM and the gas engine making it 660 pound-feet of torque at 1800 RPMs. With the B67 diesels top out at 2600 RPM, the preliminary numbers have the octane screaming all the way to 3200 RPMs. The octane belongs to Cummins Helm series engines that are fuel agnostic, and is a clean sheet design with a new block. The octane will lead to future diesel and hydrogen derivatives that share its architecture, double overhead cam with a rear gear train and front auxiliary drive options, among other things. It's also lighter than the current B67 diesel. Going gas means you can ditch diesel exhaust fluid, tanks, and emissions equipment while enjoying diesel-like maintenance. Intervals Cummins figures 15,000 miles, which I never agree with 15,000 mile oil change intervals. If you're dreaming of swapping this torque monster into your favorite schoolie and heading for the nearest NASCAR infield, you'll need to wait a while. Production doesn't begin until next year and will initially be limited to Cummins OEM chassis partners such as Kenworth. But eventually, we'll have to imagine that the octane will be available to anyone who values mega torque and high mileage longevity over outright horsepower. Although based on all the preposterously quick HD Cummins Rams roaming the land, 300 horsepower might just be the start. Here are some specs for this engine that I found on Cummins' website. I would have liked to see maybe a push rod design, but that's just what I'd like to see on engines like this. But it shows here 350 bar fuel pressure, which someone actually did the math. I think it's like 5,000 plus PSI of fuel pressure, which is pretty impressive too. 10W30 oil and 5W30, which is probably that full synthetic for the colder climates as well. Let's talk about this for a second. Nothing would make me happier to see Ram utilize a Cummins gas engine. I think that they would double their sales for gasoline engines, especially with that overbuilt setup there. It's turbocharged, which means they would be the only truck in the segment with a turbocharged gasoline engine. The only negative things are that engine don't RPM, and 300 horsepower is laughable, even though the torque is pretty big, and the torque would probably make up for the loss of horsepower, but it don't RPM, and I'm sure that Hemi will RPM around 6,000, 7,000 RPM, somewhere in there. Now, obviously, you have to look at the competition. Ford is leading the way with gas HD Super Duty trucks. Their 7.3 puts out 430 horsepower, I believe, and 485 pound-feet of torque. They also have a 6.8, which does pretty good at 405 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. Both of those are mated to 10-speed transmissions, although they're slightly different trans. GM has the L8T gas engine. It's a 6.6 displacement. That engine puts out 401 horsepower and 464 pound-feet of torque. Now, for Ram for 2025, I don't know why they did this. It's probably because of emissions, probably because of the EPA, for who was in office last time. They did reduce the horsepower down to 405 for the 6.4 Hemi. and it has 429 pound-feet of torque. So again, that Cummins gas engine has insane torque, but it depends on how they gear it is what I would like to see too. But I think the RPMs are just too low. I think that for a gasoline engine, it might not feel like a good setup on a truck like this, in my opinion. I think if it RPM'd at 4,500, maybe that would be better. But yeah, I think 2,800 RPMs is just too low, because that's probably about where it's going to shift off at anyways, right? And you're going to need lower gearing, so that thing's probably going to get terrible gas miles as well. So I don't see Ram using that engine unless Cummins has another option that we don't know about. As you guys heard, they're doing an agnostic. So that engine is like set up to run on different types of fuels, hydrogen, gas. I want to say even diesel. And it might even be able to run on different fuels in just one platform as well. So yeah, there's a lot of good options from Cummins for the medium duty segment, but probably not for Ram trucks. So yes, I don't think that engine will make its way into the trucks, although it'd be cool to see two Cummins options. I could see them maybe offering it for like your cab and chassis truck. So if somebody wants to buy that looks to be a 45, let me zoom in, let me see if I can see it from here. I don't want to walk all the way over there. Yeah, that's a 4,500. So if someone wants to buy a 4,500 and they're going to use that truck for a wrecker, that gas engine would make perfect sense for something like that, because most guys don't buy diesels because they're idling a lot. And as you guys saw in that article, a lot of companies, a lot of owners are tired of dealing with DEF. They're tired with all the emissions crap, especially with what they were going to in the future. Now, obviously they have relaxed a lot of those things, but the saying still goes. Diesels are still a problem. You still have EGR, which puts junk back into your engine. You still have the DPF, the SCR, and of course, as I said earlier, DEF. So there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong on these trucks. So having a gas option for maybe those, if someone wants something a little bit more robust and for longevity, that would make more sense. But for a truck like this, I wouldn't buy that Cummins engine. That thing would feel like a dog for sure. And yeah, I think that if you're towing heavy and you don't want a diesel, that might be the only option for you because of the longevity aspect of it. But we'll have to wait and see what Ram does, because the 6.4 is outdated. I'm not a fan of them bringing back the Hemis, by the way. I know people have been doing videos on that. I'm not a fan of the Hemi because it's too outdated. A lot of these manufacturers have dumped a ton of money into those 3-liter Hurricane engines, which is found in their half tons, and now they want to bring back an old platform like the 5.7 and of course the 6.4. The only good benefit of those two engines are that they are still port injected, so you do still have that spray on those intake valves. But again, if Cummins were to build an engine for Ram, it would have to RPM higher, and the horsepower would have to be at least in that 400 range for sure. But let me know you guys' thoughts. I could be wrong here. Maybe I'm overlooking something for sure. But the 6.4 Hemi does need to be updated. I think that they need to make it port and direct injection. That would be a start. And they probably could even boost the horsepower up to be more in line with Ford. But right now, Ford is leading the way with gas engines. If I were to go out today and get a gas HD, it would 100% be a Ford. I liked my L8T gas that I had from GM, but I just feel like the horsepower is just too, it just suffers at these higher elevations. I'm about 4,500 feet above elevation, and that engine suffers compared to the Fords. It just does. I think that the Hemi performs better compared to the L8T, but if Ram wants to get serious about the gas engine, I think that they need to redesign the Hemi. As I said, they need to find a way to make it port and direct injection to get more power out of it. Also, they need to dump the MDS, which is the multi-displacement system. That's number one. They need to fix the cam and lifter problems. If it's a parts problem, if they need to get a better supplier with better hardening, then they need to do that, because that might be the option for them to really bring that gasoline engine back to the forefront for people who don't necessarily need a diesel. I did a towing test with a 6.4, and that engine pretty much performed about the same as the Ford 7.3, but again, I like the Ford 7.3s a lot better if I had to choose. And as I said, it's because of the MDS, it's because of the cam and lifter failures. I know that the Ford 7.3s have a little bit of issues too, but not like the Ram trucks right now. So hopefully they fix that in the upcoming years. We have Tim Kuniskis back, so that is promising to maybe see some updates. I'm not even too against even seeing a overbuilt 3-liter Hurricane come to this platform. I know that no one's gonna agree with me on that one. I shouldn't have said that. I just opened up a can of worms, so I'm done. I'm done talking because you guys are gonna hate me in the comment section for that one. But yeah, I'm not against them maybe bringing out a twin-turboed inline 6 gas engine if they overbuild it, you know, give it better cooling. But again, it's all about longevity, and that's what Cummins is known for. So we'll have to wait and see if Ram will maybe look at that platform as an option maybe. And if they do, it would be for those trucks over there. All right, I just got home. My phone was telling me traffic was starting to build up, so I had to pause the video, jump in my car, run home, and so now I'm home now. But a few things to discuss, and I didn't mention this in the video and I should have. The reason why it doesn't RPM, and I forget about this, it's not a V8, it's an inline 6, a big inline 6, 6.7. So when you think about the stroke in the engine, I completely forgot about this. It wouldn't be able to RPM much more than what it is because of the stroke of that engine, right? Because it still has to do the same duty cycle, as I call it, as like a regular engine with a lot shorter stroke. So there's no way for them to really raise that RPM. However, something to consider is the fact that with the turbo, that should make up the difference in the RPM. So maybe, just maybe, the RPMs would be fine, especially if you live high above elevation. I think that this could be a good option, but I think it's highly unlikely simply because of the fact that it's a heavy platform too. I'm sure that 6.7 gasoline engine is probably just a couple 100 pounds maybe lighter, if not about the same weight as a diesel engine if it's overbuilt and built the same way. They didn't talk about construction. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe it could be lighter, but Ram trucks already being pretty heavy, there's no way this engine would work because of that too, unless Ram went to an aluminum body. But are they going to spend extra money to try to make a gas engine work, especially if we don't know what the future holds with the administrations and what they're planning to do for emissions? So yeah, I don't think that this is likely to see in a Ram truck, although it is fun to talk about. But let me know your guys' thoughts. I think that the RPMs would be fine after just thinking about it. I was driving on the way home and I was like, maybe the RPMs would be fine because of the turbo. And something else to consider in closing is if you are someone that does plan on doing full-time hot shot and you climb a lot of grades, you don't have to worry about that gas engine screaming because of the RPMs not being as high. So this could be a good platform even for those who just want to get out of diesel engines. So yes, hope you guys liked the video. Be sure to share your thoughts down below. Peace.